Days of heavy rainstorms have created even more miserable conditions for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians living in makeshift shelters in Gaza. Some of the tents and flimsy structures have collapsed under the weight of the rain, soaking mattresses and blankets. Water is flooding destroyed roads, piles of rubble and tent camps. Shortages of fuel, cooking gas and food mean families are cold and hungry. Israel is continuing to limit the entry of humanitarian aid in violation of the ceasefire agreement with Hamas. Well, let's speak to Shaina Low now, who's a communications advisor for Palestine at the Norwegian Refugee Council. She's joining us from Amman, Jordan. Shaina, thank you so much for your time. You've been speaking, I understand, to NRC teams on the ground every day in Gaza. How severe has the impact of the recent rainfall been on the displaced communities there?
Well, it's been simply horrific. Thousands of people have had their tents be flooded. The few belongings that they continue to have been damaged or destroyed. We're facing tremendous shortfalls and shortages in terms of emergency shelter assistance, tents, sealing off kits, tarpaulins, framing kits, including NGOs, including the Norwegian Refugee Council, being prevented from bringing in the aid that we have sitting, waiting in Egypt. Israel continues to reject our request to bring in aid. And compounding all of the shortages is the fact that there isn't heavy machinery and not enough work has been done to mitigate flooding and prevent flooding. And so the sites, which are on very low land, the displacement sites, need to have drainage channels dug. There needs to be heavy machinery and tools in order to better prepare the land, because even with adequate supplies, even with adequate tents, the flooding will remain an issue unless we're able to get in materials to raise the floors of tents. Or to mitigate the flooding to begin with.
What reasons are the Israeli authorities giving you for rejecting these essential items, Shaina, if any?
Well, for NGOs like the Norwegian Refugee Council, the rejections that we've been receiving simply say that this organization is not authorized to bring in aid at this time. This seems to be linked to Israel's effort to force all previously registered INGOs operating in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory to re-register. And though our pre-existing registration remains intact, we continue to be blocked from bringing in aid. And this is not just NRC where I work. It applies to dozens of other NGOs that have been operating in the OPT for decades.
NRC, I understand, co-leads the shelter cluster in Gaza. Can you tell us a little bit more about that for our viewers who don't know what it is, how it operates, and what your teams are actually able to do on the ground, given the scale of the destruction and the fact that you are so limited in terms of what you can bring in? How is this helping?
So the shelter cluster is a coordinating body. We work with the UN, we work with international non-governmental organizations to coordinate the shelter response, ensure that supplies are being dispatched and distributed in the most efficient and equitable ways possible, to ensure that people in need are able to connect with organizations that have supplies that they can provide. Now, we're continuing to face challenges, both because of the lack of supplies that are being allowed in, the rejections that INGOs like NRC are facing, and of course, also with the limited space that we have available in order to support people in makeshift sites and camps. There's a tremendous amount of destruction and rubble that needs to be removed. We need to see heavy machinery enter Gaza to be able to remove that. We need to have teams of deminers to go and make sure that there is not unexploded ordnance or explosive remnants of war, which continue to provide hazards for people trying to return to their homes or communities. And so what we at the Shelter Cluster are doing, in addition to our coordinating role, is continuing to advocate for the entry of supplies. And we need to ensure that supplies that are entering, whether through UN channels or whether through governments individually, are up to humanitarian standards. We saw over the weekend that there were tents that collapsed due to the weight of the rain. Tents that meet minimum standards should not do that. We need to ensure that tents are waterproof and don't need additional reinforcement to protect people from the rain. So this is the work that we as NRC and our partners in the shelter cluster are continuing to do day in and day out. under very difficult circumstances.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time to speak to us about this. Shaina Low from the Norwegian Refugee Council.
Don't miss out. Get a full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.